Awesome. So we have Greg Webb here tonight for a CanBeWell members event. And this is about talking about the Touch for Health discipline, but also about the complete edition textbook that was written by John and Matthew. And Greg is going to take us through some of his fond memories and the times that he spent with John. And we get to have a chance to just chat and explore what we all know about Touch for Health and why we love it so much. So thank you, Greg, for hosting tonight, and I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, it's been quite the delightful journey. Just kind of start off as we all kind of have our own little, wow, was this ever interesting material event or an interesting thing in our life that caught our attention first off. For me, I had freshly moved to the city of Calgary after going to college up in Edmonton, working in the oil industry, doing geology work. And the chiropractor that I was seeing, a fellow by the name of Dr. Bob Haycock, in 1979, was using Touch for Health material in his chiropractic practice to ascertain where to do adjustments at. And he would find out which segment of my vertebrae would appreciate adjustment, and then which corresponding organ, and then which corresponding muscle corresponded to that organ. And he would check, for instance, if it was the middle of my spine, kind of like mid-T range, that's around T5, 6, and go, oh, well, that might be stomach area. And he'd check my pectoralis major clavicular, and sure enough, it would, and or sternal, and it would show need for correction. And then he'd do his chiropractic adjustments and recheck the pectoralis major and sternal, and they would be strong. And then he'd recontact the spine area and find that it was good. And I thought, well, that is just a brilliant way to do chiropractic practice. So I found that whole thing fascinating, and I tried telling a number of my friends and colleagues at the time about it. I was working in the oil industry, and they all kind of looked at me with this funny look on my face, because at that point in time, any modality or methodology of honoring what the body already knows and being able to access what the body already knows was considered a little unusual, to say the least. So I saw him as a chiropractor for a number of years. And then mid-1980s, Pierre Elliott Trudeau offered 80% of the population of the oil industry of Alberta the opportunity to do something else for a living, including myself. So fast forward a few years, I find myself in massage therapy school. The massage therapist who was working at my chiropractor's office had just started up the massage therapy program at Mount Royal College. So I thought, well, that's not a bad place to start. So first time in my life that I ever landed into a course where I got the highest marks in every course that I ever took. I'm typically speaking, my learning is that I got to fight tooth and nail for every mark that I get, but the anatomy, the physiology, the human body sciences really made sense and landed easily in my brain. So, and I found it fascinating. So that was great. But I realized in that curriculum that there was things that were missing that I knew that existed. I knew that there was an energy-body connection. I didn't know much about it. And in the early 1990s, was there really much for material on it? No. But I knew there was an energy body there, but the massage therapy curriculum, it was just not part of what was ever going to be taught in the massage therapy curriculum. Halfway through my massage therapy training, there was a Touch for Health course offered in town. I went, oh, right, Touch for Health, right. I want to sign up for that. So a gentleman who was very instrumental in the growth of Touch for Health in Canada, a fellow by the name of Michael Delore from Vancouver, he was president of the Canadian Association for quite some time. He was the instructor. It was a Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, and I remember very clearly about halfway through the first Friday night, this very loud voice going off in my head as all these light bulbs are going off in my head, and it's filling in all the cracks and blanks that would never be filled by standard and allopathic aligned collegiate education. And it was just making sense for me. And this voice went off in my head that said, Greg, whatever you need to do to share this information with others, you must. And I went, okay, I get it. So since that point in time, and that was 92, 91, 92, something of that nature, Touch for Health material has never really been far from my hands. It was a fascinating phenomenon. After my chiropractor, I saw a herbalist here in town by the name of June Cobb, who would use test vials, little glass vials filled with water and different frequencies of foods and herbs and vitamins and such. and she was just using the standard just ring indicator muscle. And I found it fascinating how at times it would hold rock solid, and at times, even though I was a fairly strong young farm boy, there was no strength in those farm boy hands when she put something on my body that it didn't like. And then her modality was to offer me corrective supplementation and dietary recommendations, which again I thought was quite a sensible approach to working on the body. So that was sort of my aha material. And one of the things that I appreciate about the Touch for Health Complete Edition, that fairly well beat up edition, that John and Matthew Thie authored, was at the start of each one of the meridian sections, there is these wonderful little wow success stories from people who have gone on to be the giants whose shoulders we've stood on as we've learned as students and grown to our own place within the muscle monitoring industry. Their own personal wow moment, and we all have those, and I think there's sheer magic in those, and it's lovely to reflect back on them and remember that absolute awe and excitement that we had when we first discovered this wonderful tool. And just quite grateful for John Thie and for George Goodhart. Probably most of you are familiar with the story, but Goodhart being just a bit of a curious researcher, and working in his dad's chiropractic practice, looking for things that other people weren't doing at the time, and really just by paying attention, being a ferocious reader, and watching for clinical coincidences, put together the matchup of the anterior serratus muscle and rubbing it fairly briskly, which then became origin insertion technique to correct muscle weakness. Origin insertion technique is now taught in most hands-on manipulation courses of physiotherapy, massage therapy, whatever you wish. Origin insertion, where you frisk back and forth where the muscle attaches to the bone. Pretty familiar material. There also ended up being an overlap between a constipation issue, the fascial lata muscle, and Frank Chapman's neurolymphatic reflexes, which run down the outside of the thigh where the fascial lata muscle runs. And all George Goodhart was doing was applying origin insertion technique to the fascial lata muscle. And at that point in time, the gentleman commented that his sciatic pain that he came for treatment with dissipated. George Goodhart recognizes that the sciatic pain can be caused by inflammation of the bowel, and the gentleman was commenting that inflammation of the bowel and low back pain was an issue, and that walking would help relieve it. And walking equals fluid movement and perhaps a lessening of swelling. George Goodhart then happened to match up that reflex to Frank Chapman's, an osteopath who'd mapped out a series of basically organ reflexes designed to allow the lymphatic system for each organ to then drain more effectively by going to the muscles that control the diameter of the capillary beds and opening them, as an analogy, effectively turning drinking straws into garden hoses or drainage pipes, and you can always get more fluid through a larger pipe. Goodhart then also empirically matched up the Terrence Bennett neurovascular reflexes chiropractor from California, who was using a fluoroscope at the time to map out. A fluoroscope is capable of showing internal blood flow quantities, and Terrence Chapman was using the fluoroscope at the time to map out a series of reflexes through his intuitive and clinician skills, mostly when held lightly on the head, some elsewhere on the body, but mostly on the head. And again, the similar effect, it affects the muscles, which affect the capillary bed diameter, turning tiny vessels into larger vessels. So here we have something that activates the muscular firing capacity in origin insertion technique. We have something which improves the lymphatic drainage in the neurolymphatics of the musculature, and we have something which improves the blood flow to refresh and enhance the power back into the muscles with the neurovasculars. And that was sort of the foundation. And then what came next was the acupuncture meridian overlap. And some of you might remember, but in the early mid-1960s, there was an American diplomat on official business in China and had an appendicitis attack at the time, and they did appendix surgery on him, not using anesthetic, but using acupuncture needles only versus drugs for the anesthesia. And it's at that point in time that the Western North American audience went, wow, this acupuncture thing that the Chinese have been using for 2,000 years, there must be something to it. That's also based on an organ system. So we have the organ systems being affected by the lymphatics, the organ and gland systems being affected by the neurovasculars, the organ and gland systems being a match up to the acupuncture meridian pathways. And then what happened is George Goodhart said about empirically matching up by manual muscle testing which muscles would correspond to the organ and to the reflex. So if he would map, he would work these, for instance, stomach reflex and find which muscles corresponded to stomach reflex, work the other reflexes, find which muscles corresponded to that. And that's how the whole system was mapped out. So just good empirical research. And he and the colleagues who were initial part of the George Goodhart work, which then became named Applied Kinesiology, that initial 12 practitioners who like to nickname themselves the Dirty Dozen, were quite a bunch of boisterous, inventive, creative characters with a good mindset for exploring clinic data and sort of pushing the limits of what was currently being done and discovering new things. So we owe a lot to them, including the word kinesiology, which many of them have admitted down the road. You know, at the time we were thinking, well, we're using the study of movement of the body, and we're kind of using the body, and the muscles and the movement, but we're using it in a different way. So we'll call it applied kinesiology. And maybe if we call it kinesiology, well, then maybe the Western medical folks will like us. Well, 60 years later, good luck with that one. But one of the things that did become apparent, especially for us in Canada, about 3 years ago, December 2018, whenever it was. Anyways, we got a letter from the University Kinesiology Board in Ontario saying that, oh yeah, by the way, we happen to own a trademark name on the word kinesiology. And even though you guys like to call yourself kinesiologists and explain how, well, it's not really university kinesiology, it's just a different form of biofeedback, they gave us fairly firm notice that we needed to very rapidly stop using the kinesiology word, which was met with some interesting emotional experiences because we're all emotionally tied to this word that we'd identified ourselves with since we were growing up in muscle testing school. But through going through the process of evaluating what really is meant by applied kinesiology, the word kinesiology is actually a really poor definition for the complete and total creative potential which this muscle monitoring, biofeedback, non-honoring of the body tool is that we have at our disposal. Kinesiology, essentially, if you look it up in the dictionary, it just means the study and movement of the body and the muscles and the organs, and the muscles and the skeleton, rather. It really doesn't say anything about the acupuncture meridian correspondences. It doesn't, the word kinesiology in the dictionary doesn't say anything about all the other correspondences of life, how we live it, how our body lives life, and most importantly, how easy it is for the muscles to communicate via biofeedback response what's going on in our life, what's going on in our organs, what's happening in our glands, what's happening in our acupuncture meridians, for those who work with chakras, for those who work with hormones, for those who work with nutrition, for those who work with neurotransmitters, and the list goes on and on and on, to the point where quite often when I'm teaching Touch for Health classes, I'll plant the seed with clients and with students that really the only limitations are your training, your belief system, and your creativity. And if you put training, well, you can always go learn more. And that's where this tool of ours, muscle monitoring, really brings part of its gift. It becomes a gift of the desire for lifelong learning, because the more you know, the more fun you get to have. Yeah, it's quite nice. At the beginning in the John and Matthew Thie book, one of the things that they have at the beginning of each of the sections is metaphors. And the metaphors are based a little bit out of the muscle, how we express ourselves when we move. If I contract my pectoralis major clavicular, that's a bit of a closed-in posture. Or is it protecting myself? Or is it giving myself a hug? Or is it my ability to pull things into me? We talk about the, what's another muscle? We'll talk about the latissimus dorsi, this one. That one corresponds to pancreas, and emotionally speaking corresponds to, do you see the sweetness in life? Are you okay with it? The lower trapezius corresponds to the lymphatic system, which equals how clear am I in my life? How clear am I about this particular situation that might be causing me stress? Or am I kind of congested or blocked around it? the middle trapezius also corresponding to the spleen meridian. So far we have latissimus dorsi spleen meridian, lower trapezius spleen meridian, and then we have middle trapezius spleen meridian, which corresponds to the immune system. And the immune system is how wide open to life am I, this posture, or do I feel like I'm being pinned to the wall? It can have either or, right? The immune system is also a little bit about, since it's the middle trapezius, do I feel like, which is in between the shoulder blades at the back, do I feel like my back is covered? Do I feel like I'm protected? Other muscles that are in between the shoulder blades are the rhomboids, which correspond to liver. And liver, you can see the emotion chart behind me. The dark green circle is the wood element. And wood element and liver gallbladder are really, they're kind of like the verbs of the body. They get stuff done. You get riled up enough and you basically get riled up enough that something's got to change here, or something's got to change here. It's a motivator, right? And again, to the back muscles, you get your back up around stuff. How often is that used as an expression? So there's all kinds of metaphors in the Touch for Health book, which are really important to pay attention to. But as well as I'm working with clients, and I'm checking the muscles, I'll work the metaphor of the motion of the muscle into the conversation as we're testing and or working on an area. And then, because as a massage therapist, one of the things that I've so totally appreciated about the Touch for Health approach is it makes life easy. It pre-softens tissue predictably, wonderfully, before I even get my hands on there from a manipulation standpoint. Because what the simple action it's called the information sandwich. First, you monitor the muscle, you check it in its proper position, then you apply the circulation reflexes, and then you recheck the muscle. Well, circulation reflexes isn't one of the whole primary focuses of any hands-on physical manipulation tool to increase the circulation in the area. So if you stop and pause and think for a second, neurolymphatics open the pipes, neurovasculars open the pipes, and isn't it easier to push fluid through an open pipe versus a closed pipe? Of course it is. So what you're doing for the body when you do those circulation reflexes is you are opening the way for letting go via the lymphatic system of whatever was held in the area. And that can also be, metaphorically speaking, for letting go of whatever the emotional charge was in the area. The neurovasculars have a tendency to bring in the fresh support and renewal, bring in the vitality, bring in the strength, bring in a new attitude, bring in a new capacity. They're often quite nice to work with the balancing emotions, because it'll bring in the new balanced emotion as a way. And those emotions have a signature frequency to them that is then carried and stored in the water as part of our body. And Dr. Emoto, the Messages in Water, did a lovely job of photographing the power of different emotional states and how it will change the structure and the behavior of the water in our body and the water we drink. So, and then you've got the acupuncture meridian basis, which then is the chi. It is the vitality, the how you present your energy in life. And we've all had opportunities where we've met somebody and we have an automatic, easy connection to them, maybe even before there's been a word exchange. We've also had opportunities where we've encountered a place or somebody, and even perhaps again before a single word is exchanged, there has been, this is like, ooh, my radar is a little up around this person, I don't know what that is. That is your energy body, that is your vitality body, meshing with what's around you and giving your pre-conscious, your subconscious body information about how it thinks your body, your nervous system, and then your brain should be responding in a situation. So when you're working with the meridian systems, you're not only enhancing the meridian flow, but you're also clearing the stress out of how your energy body radiates out and how your energy body takes in other people's eminences and calms the interaction, friction, static between the two. And it's reasonably common over the years, been doing this for about 30 years, that I'll find that clients will comment, I came in for a Touch for Health balance, a muscle balance, and there was that issue that I had with that person. And you know what was interesting, Greg? That person, when I went back to work or went back to that situation, they weren't the same. They seemed softer, easier to get along with. And the reason for that is the person who actually showed up for the Touch for Health balance, their energy field projections changed, which then resulted in a different received response by the person that used to have the issues, and now is their energy field and their psyche is less triggered. So it's a fascinating approach to this wonderful gift of Touch for Health. But I encourage you to, this Touch for Health book here is filled with all kinds of gems. And then there's the other one that's written by Tony Lilly, which is more of a stripped down version. I mean, it's just kind of like Cole's notes version. It's simply got the muscles, the reflexes, and the techniques. Not a bad book in that regard, but it's missing a lot of the joy and the magic out of what is in the John and Matthew Thie book. Speaking of joy and John Thie and joy and magic, I had the pleasure of early in my career sponsoring him to Calgary. What had happened is I had seen an advertisement in the Canadian Touch for Health Association newsletter, is written by Michael Delore, and that would have been winter of 92, 93, something like that. But anyways, John Thie was scheduled to be in Toronto, and then he was scheduled to be in Vancouver. As soon as I saw Toronto and Vancouver, I went, there is no way in the world that he's going to fly over top of Alberta without stopping here. So I got a hold of him, and we arranged for an absolutely lovely workshop. And I've got some pictures. So Michelle, I'll get you to kind of cue up a little slideshow. This is from October 1993 at a guest ranch out just west of Calgary in the foothills of Alberta called Rafter 6 Guest Ranch. And we had a lovely gathering out there with a bunch of people and some other courses in Calgary. And I've got a nice old convertible 1969 Buick Wildcat, and I took them for a little bit of a sightseeing tour afterwards. So Michelle, I'll let you roll the camera, and perhaps I'll talk a little bit about some of the pictures. There we go. So this is the campsite itself. You can see the beautiful Rocky Mountains in the background. There's John sitting on the massage table addressing the students. And the fellow who's standing beside the camera tripod on the left is my original Touch for Health business partner, Mike Baxter. Him and I ran what was the first massage clinic in Okotoks. And he lived out in the area, knew a bunch of people in the horse industry, was a horse, his prior career was in the horse business. And he put together a Touch for Health manual for working on horses. We lost track of each other 95, 96. I don't know where on the planet he's at now. All right, next picture. And Michelle, go ahead and scroll up a bit. And there we go. There's John Thie sitting on the massage table, merrily chatting away on a sunny day. Go ahead and next picture up. And Michelle, you can go ahead and scroll up there. John just relaxing on a break, chatting with somebody. I just quite adore that. He was a very engaging man to talk with. When you had a conversation with him, you knew he was really listening. He wasn't thinking ahead or anything like that. He wasn't off topic. He was really actually quite engaged with whoever he was in the company of. And next picture. There we are. There is John and his lovely wife, Carrie Thie. John is no longer with us. Carrie is. There's my business partner, Mike Baxter, and his girlfriend who'd fallen off a horse, explaining the weight cast on her left leg. There's the love of my life, my honey, Chris, and I. And there's my 1969 Buick Wildcat, which we then later used as a wedding car, nicknamed Goldie. Which is still in my backyard, by the way. There is John and Carrie Thie in my car, and the reason the massage table's in the back is if you've ever ridden in a convertible, there can be quite a back wind that will come. The wind will go up over the windshield and come. It'll circle back in the back seat. One of the things that I discovered is if I put my massage table in the back seat, the wind bounces off the massage table and it stays really nice and calm. This is kind of mid-October in the Rockies, so that's why John Thie is wearing the hand knit hat, hand knit too, that Carrie knitted for him on his head. And next picture, and another picture of John and Carrie. And I will tell you, cruising in a nice old ragtop is a lovely sight. It's a lovely thing. John and Carrie outside of the Banff Springs Hotel. And I'd given these pictures to the crew for the Banff conference, but they ended up having a computer crash the night before and lost them. So it didn't become part of the presentation out there. There's John and Carrie at Lake Minnewaca, just outside of Banff. And next picture. And again, the Palliser Range, that's at Lake Minnewaca, look over. And I think that might be it for pictures. But one of the things that, there's several things that stand out from being in John's company. He had a lovely way of being enthusiastic about it. But one of the things that he said that will stick with me for a long time, because he put up with a lot of flack in the process of bringing Touch for Health into the chiropractic community and into the community. And he's a very deeply Christian man, and sometimes Christians have their beliefs about things which are not from the Bible. But he said, if you like rainbows, you got to learn to put up with a little bit of rain. He says, I've put up with a lot of rain sharing information about Touch for Health, but I sure do like the rainbows. I thought that was quite cute. Another thing about the Rafter 6 experience, the chef out there made spectacular brownies. Amazing. Like, if you want to get me to do tricks and cartwheels, even though I can't do a cartwheel, give me a really good brownie and I'm your buddy, right? So John Thie decided to use this as a demonstration of food testing. So no big surprise, the brownie muscle tested weak on my body. And then he said, Greg, what I want you to do is hold that brownie in your hands, fill it full of as much love and appreciation as you possibly can, and then we'll recheck it. So I prayed over this brownie and I blessed it to my body and I thanked all those who made it, and then held it up to me, and sure enough, every single muscle in my body that he checked was completely strong and fine towards that brownie. What that taught me is the value of taking a moment before each meal and praying over our food and blessing it to our body. It was a good valuable lesson. Where should we go from here? Let's open up the floor. And if anybody wants to share any of their experiences of their first wow moment with muscle monitoring and Touch for Health, it'd be lovely to hear that.
Such a shy group. Helga, were you going to say something?
Michelle. Can't see anybody else.
Everybody should be there. Well, who has their camera on, Greg, should be seen. Did you want to say something, Helga?
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you. You said it before, right? Yes, my first experience with Touch for Health was my daughter was in school and came back, and she told me my teacher did something with my arm, and sometimes I was strong. No, that is not what she said. I don't remember exactly what she said, but sometimes my arm went down and sometimes my arm was strong. And I said, what is it? What did she do? And my daughter couldn't explain. So I went to the teacher. I wanted to know what she did. And she was a Touch for Health instructor, and she taught, or she worked with the kids to get them stronger, and to when they couldn't concentrate or when they were tired, and then she made this exercise that they could be aware again, that they had more energy. That was really interesting. And I took the next course with her, and since then I do Touch for Health. And that was in the middle of the 90s, 95, 94, 95. I'm not sure anymore.
Wow. That's awesome. Anybody else that has something to share?
There's got to be more stories up there.
Yeah, Judy's coming here.
I was covered in eczema and working with a girl, and she said to me, "Oh, please stop scratching. You need to see my kinesiologist friend." So I went and I saw this person. I had spent $100 on prescriptions, nothing had happened. And she gave me a $7 tube of vitamin E cream and did a balance, a Touch for Health balance, 14 muscles, I think it was. And the eczema was gone the next day. And I thought, well, isn't that just altogether interesting? And so anyways, I kept going to her, and I felt that the money being spent paying somebody else to do the work for me was not money well spent. So I started to take Touch for Health. So I've been using Touch for Health since, well, let's see, 95, I guess. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, Judy.
Awesome.
My story, I had so much emotional impact as a dance studio owner, and I had several performing groups, and so I lost the ability to walk on my feet. And I had Lynn Simonson from New York, a modern dancer, that came to do a workshop at Decidedly Jazz Dance Works in Calgary. So I hobbled my way in because I was so interested in what she was going to be sharing. And she said Touch for Health. And that was ahead of Google, so we couldn't search for it. So it took me about a year to find somewhere in a phone book somewhere Greg's name, and to be able to go and have a session, and then to dive into every class I could get my hands on after that, because the pain in my feet, every time I visited for another session, the pain in my feet would be, was gone when I left, and then there'd be another pocket of something that would show up, but always it was gone when I left. And that aha moment, Greg, that you talk about, that first time that you do the muscle monitoring with an indicator muscle like the anterior deltoid, and that arm drops, is just always, wow, such a pop. And so when I did level 1 with Greg, I did it with my business partner who also owned a dance studio. And the two of us went home after day 1 and was muscle monitoring on my husband, and his arm was going up and down and up and down. We were laughing our heads off that we could have this kind of control and have so much fun. And that was the second piece. Like, the knowledge was amazing, but then the second piece is, what can you do with this, and how much you can play. And when you play with just small tools, you can have such impact. So that was part of my story. Anybody else? Go for it, Linda. You're muted there.
I was just trying to get my mic to come on. My first experience with kinesiology was when we moved back from Peru to Canada, and my kids both had serious allergies, and I had a seriously messed up thyroid. And we started going to this guy who'd only done the first 2 classes. And he just said, well, I'll see if I can help you. I don't know, we'll just try it. And my kids' allergies started disappearing, and he finally did a session on me, and I told him, I had some allergies I wanted to look after, minor compared to my kids. He says, okay. So we did the session, and we were going through the balance, and he says, by the way, your thyroid is really messed up. And I go, well, I'm well aware of that. It has been my whole life. I take the highest dose of medication there is, and I've done that since I was 12 years old. Yeah, I know my thyroid doesn't work. He goes, well, would you like that fixed? Really? Sure. Of course. And 2 sessions later, 2 balances later, it was like I literally felt it click on, and it zoomed up to normal. It's been normal ever since, which is now 18 years later. I stopped taking my medication just cold turkey because I knew I didn't need it anymore. My tests, I still test it every 5 years just to be safe, but it's always fine. And by the time I got my first test back from my doctor saying my thyroid is normal and I hadn't taken any pills for 3 months, it was like, you need to teach me everything you know now. And that was the start of my career, and I've loved it ever since.
Anybody else have anything to share?
Marty,
Floor is
what-
yours. Go ahead, Greg.
I have a tidbit of a factoid, a piece of information, and I don't know, some things just stick in my brain. And but when George Goodhart started out, he presented the origin insertion technique at the first meeting of the American Chiropractic Association at Denver in 1964.
That's amazing.
A long time
Yeah,
ago.
I was surprised that they had, you know, they had to start something like that, the American Chiropractic Association. And I was impressed by also the fact that not all states had, you know, governing bodies for chiropractic. And there's this fantastic book out there, something like Anything Can Cause Anything by Thomas Harper Jr. And it was part of a court case in Louisiana because the medical prosecutor had Thomas Harper Jr. on the stand. And every question that he asked, Thomas Harper said, "Oh, just like I wrote in my book, this is the answer for that." And finally, it was a weird case because the judge said, "Well, I can't really rule on this. You have to deal with it with other jurisdictions that already have governing bodies for chiropractic." And so the case was kind of dismissed. And then when he got off the stand, the medical prosecutor walked over, shook his hand, and said, "I want to buy your book." So I like to use the corollary, not only can anything cause anything, anything can fix it or balance it. So that's my tidbit for that.
Thank you, Marty. That's awesome.
One of the ways I was introduced to muscle checking was at a Tai Chi festival. And we had many vendors. We had you know, PlayStations for the kids, you know, the slides and everything. We had a lamb, like a mishui, like roasted on the bit, the spit, and we had a local microbrewery that donated all this beer. And at that time, I was in a phase of my life, I wasn't having anything alcohol or anything white, like sugar or pizza or white flour, stuff like that. And this guy from Halifax said, you know, like, Mr. Moy invited us all to drink the beer now because there's not enough people here to drink it. And I said, "Well, I'm not so sure I want to do that." And this fellow said, "This is what you do. Put your thumb and your finger in the glass of beer, pull it out, and see if your fingers come apart." And they didn't. So, well, then it's good for you to drink. So I filed it away for future reference. I needed 2 more, you know, nudges at my back, 2 other examples for the universe to tell me this is something you want to do. And I had a very long, I guess, Tai Chi career. And as an instructor, though, we had promised not to instruct for money. And so I learned all about this energy, and I'd like to do it with, you know, in a professional context. And so that's how I got into the result system for Margaret Keane. That was back in 1993. I finally took the plunge.
Marty, I love that you were able to connect Touch for Health to Tai Chi. When we did the research last week, what I said out loud was Tai Chi is touch for health in motion. And I don't know where that came from, but it's lovely to hear that Master Moy, in a Master Moy situation, you would have that experience. That's lovely. Thank you.
Just a segue to that, I think it was Amy Choi who said that in Asia, whether it's Touch for Health or Brain Gym, they call that Western Kung Fu, Western Qigong.
Awesome. That's a new can of worms we just opened up.
And when we're doing the whole body meridian sweeps, it has a very Tai Chi like flow to the entire pattern as well, all right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Back to the muscle meridian organ connection. One of the things that I got introduced to the idea of working with the internal cellular components after taking one of Richard Utt's applied physiology courses taught by Adam Lehman called the cell hologram. And the cell hologram is the gateway into each one of the little mini organs inside of every body cell. Your endoplasmic reticulum, your Golgi apparatus, your mitochondria, all the various enzymes and such. Each one of those corresponds to an acupuncture meridian. And one of the things that goes back in, and this is in your Touch for Health book, no matter which episode you have of the Touch for Health book, it might discuss the research of a Korean acupuncturist by the name of Kim Bong-han in the early 1960s, who, while injecting radioactive isotopes into acupuncture meridian lines to trace their pathways, found that not only did the acupuncture meridian pathway seem to go to the organ it was named after, so in other words, the liver meridian went to the liver organ, the stomach meridian went to the stomach organ, etc. Kim Bong-han also found that it seemed like the radioactive isotopes were taken up deeper, almost to the individual tissue cells themselves. And he conducted experiments where he was able to demonstrate that on freshly fertilized chicken embryos within 15 hours of conception, that the acupuncture meridian lines were beginning to form. And it is the consciousness, the spiritual God particle consciousness and the vibration held in the energy body in the acupuncture meridian lines out of traditional Chinese medicine, and must be as well out of the chakra nadi auric system, the energy field system, the energy imprint, the energy blueprint, which then guides the individual cells, the stem cells, into whether to become an arm, a leg, a muscle, an organ, a gland, or a hair. And all that consciousness is given to the individual components of the cellular structure, the mini organs, the organelles, which are empowered by a meridian. One of the things that I do quite often in my clinic work, I do quite a bit of internal organ and gland balancing, nutrient profile balancing with my clients, and I take full advantage of the fact that if somebody has an organ imbalance or glandular imbalance, as either discovered by some other practitioner, that they're bringing that information to me, or my own clinical explorations, I take full advantage of that muscle meridian correlation, and I will work with the ideal spokesperson muscle for that organ system, and then I'll explore the other organ meridian systems, because every organ meridian system works not only by itself, but in the company of all other organ meridian systems as well, right down to the organelle level. So if somebody has an imbalance, let's say in stomach acid function, well, is it the actual cells of the stomach lining which produce the digestive juices that need help? If that is, then I'll go to the organelle, whose job it is to synthesize the amino acids into the enzyme formula and then excrete that out into the surrounding areas. So I'll work with the building components. But what I'm really driving at here is through that muscle meridian organ gland connection, all of that internal chemistry of the body is there at your fingertips within your knowledge base by nothing more complicated than just simply asking and holding that awareness. Because one of the things that those of us who are familiar with the phenomenon of muscle monitoring have experienced is that the indicator muscle will change in its behavior, its hold, its let go, depending upon the thought process that the clinician is having at the time. We've all observed that many, many, many times. So when you're working with somebody, and I like to teach this to my students as well, when you're working with somebody, keep your thoughts as much on focus, on topic as you can every moment while you're working. It's a great opportunity to use focused mental frequency focus time. It's a really poor time to think about the grocery list, to-do list, and what's on tomorrow's action plan, right? So keep in mind that when a person is presenting an imbalance, you can work at a very deep level. And if you happen to know what the imbalance is in the organ system, you can go and you can research what is the body part within that organ that's responsible for that task, and you can address that task very specifically, and that specific task, which has been in a state of imbalance, will improve. And I've seen that hundreds of times in my clinic practice. So it's all completely within your reach. And why is it within your reach? Because every single component of your body, no matter how big or how small, corresponds very directly and is extremely conversation friendly to each of the 14 acupuncture primary meridians. And for those of you who know how to work with the 8 extraordinary channels, the same applies. For each of you who knows how to work with the chakra systems, the same applies. for each of you who knows how to work with any of the aspects of the energy template, the energy blueprint of the body, the same applies, as you can work at a very deep level. Now, here is something that's quite interesting. I spoke earlier on about the metaphors in the book, and when I was with Matthew Thie out in Vancouver taking his metaphors class, being the kind of guy, I really enjoyed the whole dig deep into the anatomy and physiology aspect of the muscle, organ, gland, meridian, emotional aspects of life connection. I have a lot of fun with it, I really do. And here I found in Matthew Thie's class, and if you've ever spent any time with Matthew, he's an absolutely lovely gem of a guy, and I'm so happy for him and so happy for the entire planet of Touch for Health practitioners that Matthew's at the helm, and he's doing just a lovely job. I think it's quite a shame that it's the manual in my right hand, which is mandated to be used as a classroom manual around the planet. I think it's quite a shame that it's not allowed to use the manual on the left as the preferred manual for teaching Touch for Health students. I really think that it's really nice to honor the founders and the developers. That's kind of unfortunate that that has been, the IKC has kind of removed that. You're not forced to, but you're definitely guided in preferring to use the synthesized versions. There's so much value in here. But Matthew,
sorry, Greg, I didn't know that it wasn't allowed. I teach since I am in Canada with the new book, with John F. Thie's book, and nobody said anything. And I sell it to my students, the book.
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah. Wonderful.
It is okay, Helga. It is okay. There are just some countries in Europe that don't use the full textbook. In Canada, we have quite a mix that uses both textbooks. So, yeah.
Where I was going with the metaphors story is here I am in Matthew Thie's metaphors class, and how the correction is done in Matthew Thie's metaphor class, which John Thie was a very big part of the development of, is you simply do your muscle monitoring, find which muscles are in a state of imbalance, and then you do the motion of that muscle while talking about what that posture represents in your life and in your world, because we get a lot of communication by people's posture. Motion and posture is a lot of our communication, it's a lot of our expression. And what I found fascinating was in the metaphors class was the depth of level of clearing that was possible by just simply going through the motions of the muscles and discussing. So now taking that back to Richard Dutt's studies of applied physiology, Richard Dutt out of Tucson, Arizona, student of Sheldon Deals, was famous for establishing the 14-position muscle monitoring system. And what the 14-position muscle monitoring system does is it recognizes that each muscle in its primary position, for instance, if I'm talking the pectoralis major sternal, that's position 1, and then you go position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on the way out, position 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 on the way back. What happens at each one of those 1 through 7 and 8 through 14 positions, you're creating a very inescapable conversation opportunity between the primary meridian system and one of its pals. We're on the way out because liver is a yin organ. You now have 7 of the yin organs on the way out and 7 of the yang organs on the way back. And the way I'll explain that to my clients, it's like as if you got 14 primary acupuncture meridian organ gland systems in the body. Each one of those, very much like us, we need a hairdresser, we need a dentist, we need a mechanic, we need an accountant, that kind of. We depend upon our community for our support. We can support ourselves, but as well, we need helpers. Every single body system is like that in every single regard. Nobody works alone. Everybody depends upon their pals. So it's like you've got this 14-story office building where floor number 1 could be the stomach, floor number 2 could be the spleen, floor number 3 could be the heart, et cetera, right? On each floor, there's 14 offices. On one side of the elevator bank is 7 yin offices, and on the other side of the elevator bank is 7 yang offices. So by going to the floor, in other words, the muscle for the organ system and the testing position, the office door, you can now have a very specific 2-meridian system conversation around a whole myriad of things. And that 2-meridian conversation is the absolute foundation of Richard Dutt's contribution to the world of muscle monitoring, that and finger moding as applied to an acupuncture point, or formatting, as he called it, the combination of a thumb and finger combinations create a frequency which helps to define what it is that you're wanting to inquire about or the frequency of what it is that you wish the correction to go towards. Either way, it's a frequency match where thumb and index is structural, thumb and middle is biochemical nutritional, thumb and ring is emotional, thumb and pinky is electrical system. And then you can go into thumb and with fingers closed, thumb and face of the hand of the index is anatomy, thumb and face of the ring finger is physiology. And then in order of index, organ, middle, gland, ring, hormone, and that's bone, and or some people also use it for parasite. But there's a whole manual of finger moding, which Bruce and Joan do out of a professional kinesiology practitioner series, created quite the cross-reference chart, which is finger modes, which are replicatable around the world, regardless of practitioner. But what they do is they give you the opportunity as a clinician to discuss in a 2-meridian basis. So even if you haven't taken any of Richard F's classes, you can play around with your finger modes on that muscle meridian organ connection, and go to the what's known as an alarm point, just as a change of languaging so that clients aren't as alarmed. I've chosen to language alarm points as indicator points, and there seems to be less emotional response from the clients if I call them indicator points. You can go to an indicator point with the indicator muscle. Just here we got pectoralis major sternal for liver again, or the liver indicator point. We can use structural, nutritional, emotional, electrical, organ, gland, hormone, anatomy, physiology, and explore for what creates the change, and then work that into your correction. Again, it's just taking advantage of the muscle meridian organ gland connection, and finger modes are somewhat discussed in the Touch for Health manual as well. It's quite the world of opportunity. It's quite the thing to see people discover it. It's really nice to have community. One of the things that I really appreciate about gathering with people who use muscle monitoring, we all have a certain joy of exploring, and a joy of life, and a joy of possibility, and a joy of knowing that things are always, it can work out better than what you think they might be. And there's always hope, and hope is often pretty darn easy. One of the easiest ways to install hope, frontal occipital holding, if any of you aren't happen to be applying this already to as homework for your clients to share with their friends and family, it's probably one of the easiest ways to cover miles and miles and miles of stress and help family drop stress around life. Another thing that I find that goes quite well with frontal occipital holding, because it calms the nervous system, is a breathing pattern where every time you exhale, just allow the air to escape through your lips. So it's breathe in through nose, out through lips. And then what happens is you end up with a slightly longer exhale time than your inhale time. And as a matter of strict anatomical function physiology, if you have a longer exhale than your inhale time, you're gradually shifting the body towards parasympathetic calm, and you're gradually dropping it out of sympathetic stress simply by exhaling through the lips every time you breathe. I also found that when I'm holding correction points, in particular acupressure holding points and or pulsing points, as is often done in, say, for instance, stress indicator point system and or other muscle monitoring biofeedback systems as well, that if a person is inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the mouth, there's more chi flowing. And I rewind the conversation from there back a little bit, and Michelle Greenwell, you spoke about decidedly jazz dance works. When I had my clinic practice out in Okotoks, and I was fresh in my clinic practice and using Touch for Health material, one of the things that I discovered is through self-testing and observing the body in motion with my eyes across the room with a knowledge of the body, I could pick up on which muscles were and were not working on somebody as they walked and or danced. So I spent a little bit of time volunteering with Decidedly Jazz Dance Works in Calgary, and just made an arrangement that I would just sort of come and hang out during one of the practice sessions, and got the okay from the instructors and the dancers that if there was some way that I could make moving easier and stronger for them, that they'd be okay with that. So I would hang out and watch each of them move during the performance. And it was interesting, if I picked up on a muscle that wasn't working right, there would be something about that particular dance motion that wasn't quite as smooth, or perhaps not at the right angle, or the dancer was not really put in the right position to do that motion. So I would wave them over on their break, and I would just do a quick test, correct, retest, reset, the muscle. And what happens when you do the test correct reset, again, you've changed up the entire circulation pattern, but as well, you've completely recalibrated the entire proprioceptive unit. And what I mean by proprioceptive unit is all of our soft tissues, our muscle, our fascia, our joints, our joint capsule, our muscle, our tendon, our ligaments, all communicate through the nervous system through a variety of sensory apparatuses that send nerve signals through to the cerebellum and the basal ganglia and the motor system. It's all a feedback monitoring system, and that system always knows exactly which muscles are at ideal tone, which ones are not as strong as they should be, and which ones are too tight. But the body wants to be a good dog, so if you say move the arm to the right, it's going to move the arm to the right in one way or another. But what I found is in doing the test correct retest, it creates an information sandwich that is the recalibration not only of the muscle you're primarily working on, but every single other one of its buddies that it's also working with. And there's a visible difference in the smoothness of motion of the performers. And as well, they would comment on how the motion felt easier. And often as times, oh, they had that little quirky pain that was there. Well, that was gone as well. So just sharing these stories as an invitation for others to exercise their creativity as well. Could carry on telling lots of stories. We're at the hour and a little bit mark. Open up the floor for questions, comments, other stories that people are excited to share, and then we'll call the evening a wrap. Oh, and I do have one more thing. I've been on the board of directors for the Canadian Association of Bioenergetic Wellness, which got its rename after we were no longer allowed to be called the Canadian Association of Specialized Kinesiology. And bioenergetic wellness is a far better umbrella, and bioenergetic feedback is a far better umbrella term than just simply kinesiology, because kinesiology really it felt like always the need to separate. It's like, well, it's not the kinesiology that people study in university. It's different. It's got this whole other side to it. But with bioenergetic wellness, it is far more of an self-explanatory tool. And as a board member, one of the things that I love seeing is other people enjoying that community of being part of the association. And some people will go, well, I'm not practicing, so what do I need a membership for? And so for me, the membership, which really breaks down to a general membership, is about $6-7 a month. An annual membership works out to about $12, $13, $14 a month. So the cost of a cup of coffee and a snack somewhere. Really, for me, your membership to the association isn't really based on your activity level and practice. It's more a way of expressing back for the value that these skills, which were developed by pioneers before us, how those skills have contributed value to our lives, value to the lives of our family, value to the lives of people that we love and care about, whether that be family, friends, clinician, whatever the case may be. That few dollars a month makes mountains of difference for the ability of our association and other associations around the world that you belong to. That's really what your money does, is it provides appreciation, respect for the contribution that those skills have brought to you in your life. So thank you. And thanks for joining me, by the way. It's been a lovely evening. So who else would like to share stories and or comments?
Thank you, Greg. That was awful. No, sorry. That was awesome. I wanted to say, oh my goodness. I appreciate. I work too much. It was awesome. Thank you.
Priceless.
Something that strikes me, Greg, just as you were describing biofeedback, even the dialogue that we've shifted to over these last couple of years. So started with muscle monitoring something and really focusing on those relationships of the muscles to the organs, but then talking biofeedback, and then muscle biofeedback was something else you said, and then muscle monitoring was there. So we have all these different weaving ins, but the other thing that kind of strikes me, and I've heard your story before about Decidedly Jazz and observing the dancers going across the floor, because I thought there's no way I will ever have as much information as you, Greg, which is still true, but also to be able to watch a dancer go across the floor, make a correction for them while they're dancing, and have them finish the move correctly. Just that, the awe of that piece, but the awareness of how everything links together. And so as we've kind of moved from just being muscle monitoring or muscle testing, even where we started originally, and coming through that to this awareness and this knowledge of overall what goes on. And then how do you monitor for that, or how do you gain feedback? That's really shifted. And the last part that's shifted is this, that we've been online. So then we're back to the body pendulum and the awareness that the people we're working with in a Zoom call or online in some capacity, they have to have their awareness developing in order for us to get feedback from them. And I'm finding for my own work, there's just so much more knowledge about awareness. And then Marty, that takes me back to my Tai Chi is much stronger because my awareness of the body because of Touch for Health means that when I'm talking to my students in my Tai Chi class, I'm giving them awareness cues and talking about it. So thanks, Greg, for just that explanation. Kind of just reminded me and how much information is there and how we can link it all.
Another segue, if I might add, is when I started taking the result system in '94, it was explained to us that kinesiology was simply a tool of communication. And so it's actually a narrow piece of it. And, you know, the wellness and the spiritual part, it's just so much bigger. And I really liked what Greg was saying about how in the chicken embryos, right away, the meridian started forming with the consciousness that was there. That's pretty good. Thank you.
I had forgotten, it's so long ago that I started Touch for Health, that I had forgotten that in my first classes in Vancouver, that my feet were, and it wasn't until you mentioned your feet, Michelle, that my feet were so sore that you couldn't touch them to do any of the, I think I was taking PKP or something, and it was level 1 or 2, doesn't matter. And for me to receive as part of the learning was just nuts. I couldn't do that. And I was thinking that the other day when I was doing all my gate points, etc., that you've taught, and realizing, hey, wait a minute, my feet don't hurt anymore. And you've got to be grateful for that, because we stand on them. They give us our foundation, and or not. And and now that's many years ago, of course, but to not remember that until tonight or the other night was kind of funny, actually. I appreciate, Greg, your explanation of the many connected pieces of our anatomy to one muscle monitoring response, whether it's all the way down to the cell, the mitochondria, whatever. You've got all the language, I do not. But when we work with Touch for Health and we find neurolymphatic or whatever that corrects the response of the muscle, I haven't found that I am thinking about how much bigger that picture really is, how much more it is affecting in the body, the opposites, the whatever, all those bigger things. So I appreciate the language, and I look forward to hearing the replay when Michelle gets the recording out to us. So thanks a lot, and keep up the good work. It's really great. And oh, one more thing, bioenergetic wellness is such a much easier thing to say. When people say, well, what is that? Well, bio is life, and energetic and wellness is pretty self-explanatory. It is much easier to explain than I am a kinesiologist. So I appreciate that we got there.
Thanks, Judy. Lovely to have you here, Judy, by the way, and thank you for all the many things you show up for.
Oh, you're welcome. I appreciate that these things occur. They give me a life outside of my caregiving, right? So I'm happy about that part. Yeah. It's nice to see everybody's face and, you know, to meet new people and to hear different ideas and new, you know, learn what Helga's doing up in Haida Gwaii and where you are and the journey that you have. I will acquire that Touch for Health book. Thank you for that, because I don't like the other small one at all. And the bigger one, the great big one that I got in '95 is so worn. I'm afraid if I turn the pages anymore, it's going to rip apart and fall apart. So I'll get the new book. I appreciate the suggestion and, you know, the opportunity to read it as well. Thanks again.
Judy, I have a suggestion, something that I have done successfully. I took it to the Staples store and had my book rebound. So
Okay.
you might be able to do that.
I might. If there's enough of the cover left, that will work.
Yeah, maybe.
Yes. Well, and it would be helpful because when I took the class, I put all my notes in there, all the different things, different pieces, right? So yeah. Okay, I will. That's great. Thank you very much, Mike.
Yeah, Judy, quite often what they'll do is they'll just sometimes they'll just cut the little slice off the page, like if all the ringlet holes are damaged, they'll just cut the pages where the ringlet holes are and put new ringlet holes in and feed the coil through. You can catch, might end up with the odd letter with a hole in it, but you reminded me of what a moment of pride it was to show up at a Touch for Health class with the most beat up Touch for Health book in the classroom, where there was no more room on any page to write any more notes. It was just a moment of joy to show up with that Touch for Health book, right? And one of the things, so on that topic, for those who are actively teaching or end up in a classroom, it's a good habit to get into when you get notes to take of something you want to write the month, year, and the initials or name of who you got that piece of information from. Yeah. That way, when you're asked, oh, who did you learn that from? You can say, well, it was so-and-so in such and such a place in this month and year.
And something else too that I know you told me right on that very first appointment, Greg, was keep track of all the goals that we set each time, keep archiving it. And I think back now and I'm like, there's thousands of them, and it would be lovely to have them archived, but I actually ran out of, it was just like, they're everywhere. They're on stickies and they're everywhere. But the power of the goal setting every day and constantly working with it and how quickly you can respond and change something. And then when you go back and read some of them and you're like, I was thinking that, what was wrong with me? Or I'd totally forgotten about that whole episode. It's gone from my life, and pretty profound.
Can I share a little bit more? Thank you for reminding me of that, the goal setting. And I, several minutes ago, explained how from the 14 meridian and the muscle response, the muscle is a reflection of what's happening with the muscle, as well as the communication, as well as the nervous system, as well as the organ, the gland, the acupuncture meridian, the chakra, the cellular components, the organelles, but how much of that lives in water? All of it. And when you're doing the emotional component, when you're doing the goal balancing aspect, what you're doing is you're now enabling in a very fresh, renewed way, every single down to the microscopic bits, change in how your body and your body, your energy field automatically does life differently. And it's different than standard talk therapy and change, because in standard talk therapy and change, where you is as an imaginary scenario, well, when you see situation A, rather than doing response B, now that you're aware that response B is not a good outcome, do response C instead. And so then you're sort of verbally trained within the conscious mind. So every time you see situation, rather than doing your old way, you do a new way, and hopefully you get a better outcome. What happens when you do a Touch for Health balance with a goal is it enables all of the parts of your body down to the teeniest, weeniest little bit, including the fluids in your body, to respond in a different way internally, to respond back in a different way energetically, posturally, emotionally, and verbally. And the charge is lessened off the situation. So like you just said, Michelle, you reflect back through those life situation goal statement books, and I've had lots of people bring in their little file folders full of, oh my God, this thing that we worked on 2-3 years ago used to run my life and ruin my day. I haven't thought about it in forever, right? It just moves us beyond the hurdles. And it's like life becomes this wonderful bowling lane of opportunity with no gutters.
Can I steal that title from my dissertation? I love it.
Yes, absolutely. Gregism number 105, right?
That's right. Oh my gosh. Anybody else have anything they want to contribute? I know I muted you, Marty, so put your hand up if you want me to unmute you. It was just a background
So
sound.
I muted
There we go.
myself. Greg was talking about the book, and one of the things that I recall is John Thie talking about telos, about the purpose. And then when I enjoyed taking all those courses with Matthew, he would always talk about the goal of remembering wellness. And I thought that is so in keeping with like the Tao concept of returning to the origin. And in the Sanskrit tradition, the original deity was the deity that had the first sound of the Big Bang, and it's called a roar, like R-O-A-R, the sound of a roar. And so to me, that goes together with remembrance, like returning to the void. And it's just the beauty of the touch felt is that it's so simple.
And learnable by
Remembering well.
anybody. Thanks for that, Marty.
Mm-hmm. I've got those quotes down. But I agree with Helga. We're going to have to go back and watch this again.
I didn't say it, but I will do that, yes. I need to review.
All right. Shall we call it a wrap for tonight?
Sure. And Michelle, thank you a zillion for all the incredible things that you have done to steer our organization and our community in such a lovely way, and all the things that you keep finding as a reach out opportunity of the groups that you have tagged us into. I really admire the energy and the delight and the light that you bring to everything that was near and dear to us within the world of muscle monitoring and touch for health, etc.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been so interesting to see where we've gone, and even I think that's that goal setting piece of, you know, every board meeting starts with the goal setting and bringing everything forward, and it just moves us so fast through things, and relationships really come to us, which is quite cool. I don't have to go looking for things as much as they come to us, and that's also lovely. And I'm noticing for this year, last year it seemed like all the members, it was just like really, really quiet, and everybody was just trying to cope with whatever it was they were doing. And this year I'm finding there's this rebirth of wanting to connect, but also to connect in conversation. Like we've been missing time with each other, and I feel like everybody's now trying to come back to that space. And so it's encouraging to see everybody that's here tonight, and the kinds of conversations that I have coming through the office, or that we've had at the board meeting, or that we've had with partners even. It's really been expanding. And so that's been lovely. So if we keep encouraging each other, the Facebook group, the members group page, I think we've had posts. We didn't have posts for years, and then all of a sudden it's like there's a flurry of things up there. So just to keep track of what's happening, the members group has been really, really active. And thank you everybody for contributing and being a part of it. So Greg, thank you for your time tonight. And again, your valuable expertise in the way that you describe things. And I look forward to the next time we can get together. Linda's up next month for Bioenergetic Wellness Month. That's what I wanted to say. And she's going to be presenting from natural bioenergetics perspective. And this is a presentation that will be open to the public. This one we kept for the members to just be able to talk about Touch for Health. I will pull some clips that I will try to put up for the public. So I hope everybody who had their camera on is okay with that. And then Linda will be actually presenting to the public. And so I encourage you to invite people to come and be a part of that conversation. And
When is that? When, Michelle?
November 17th. It's a Thursday night.
Oh, we had that conversation. Yes, I remember. Okay, I have it already.
Please invite your students, invite friends, people who don't know anything about it. It's going to be very beginner friendly.
Okay.
And we're going to learn 3 different things that they can do for themselves to help themselves that are sort of not necessarily generic to all of the different kinds of bioenergetic wellness, but things that will tie into or help them understand how that works, regardless of which discipline they may come from or be interested in. So we're trying to make it really beginner user friendly. So a good place to invite clients who might be just new, or have your students or who are just starting, or have them invite their clients. It's designed to be and it's not going to be specifically natural bioenergetics. I'm trying to do it more at the bioenergetic wellness level.
Okay, and time?
What time is it?
I believe it is 7 Eastern, 6 Central, before Pacific.
thank you for that.
I had someone comment today that she lives in BC, and I would like her to attend this thing, but she works till 5.
Well, if we want to push it back an hour or 2 and I don't mind being late. I mean, I work with a lot of Pacific people, so I don't
Poor
mind.
Michelle.
Poor Michelle. Michelle, you'll have to have an afternoon nap there.
I know, right? Yeah,
Or you can always just invite them to the replays. The replays they can watch whenever they want.
Sure. Okay, I'm glad it's going to be open. I appreciate that. I want her involved in CanBeWell because she's an amazing, what would I call her? Bioenergetic wellness practitioner, and she has a rather unique ability as I don't want to put language on it. So she has some unique abilities to be able to see and understand what's going on. And
I'd love to have her on live if she can, but I understand that. But Michelle, seriously, if you want to push it back an hour, I don't mind. But if she's at 5, she's not going to be able to get on at 5 anyway. It would have to be 6, and that makes it really late for the Eastern people.
No, just leave it for the 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
One more
All
thing,
right.
just in regards with appreciation. Oftentimes we have a sense of appreciation for this work, and oftentimes our clients have a sense of appreciation for the things that we've been able to do with them. And Marty, just as an appreciation to you, Marty made a $20 donation to the CanBeWell Association today using the donate feature on the canbewell.org site. So when you go to canbewell.org, on the very front page, if you scroll down just a smidgen, in the right-hand side, there's a pretty graphic that says donate to CanBeWell. So Marty found that, and he did a $20 donation. So thank you very much for that, Marty. So if you find yourself ever in possession of an extra 20, 10, 20, 30, 50, whatever you wish, that you'd like to share back to the community in way of a donation to the association, or if one of your clients says, is there anything that I can do to thank you? A donation to CanBeWell is a nice way to do it. And again, that's on the front page of canbewell.org. Just let down into the white part over on the right-hand side is a donate to CanBeWell button. So just a lovely way. And if you've got 10 people that give you $20, you got $200. You got 100 people to give you $20, you got 2,000. You get 1,000 people to give you $20, you got $20,000, right? So every
You're
little bit.
marketing to the choir here,
And we're going to Mexico.
and we're going to Mexico.
Come on down.
Come on down. Anyway,
I'll
have a
have
good
margaritas
evening, everyone.
ready.
Awesome.
I finally figured out how to renew my membership through the website. And I, for the first time, really have put out a serious calendar of class listings. And it's so easy to amend. It's like instantly the changes show up. So I'm
That's
really
lovely.
impressed with that.
Excellent.
So I really appreciate the thriving of the organization, of the website, top notch, and having these events is a great thing to do.
Excellent. Thank you, Marty. And
And I
thank you for putting those pictures up for the class listings, because we're trying in the Facebook to spread the word about different classes and highlighting things. So we're going to start to be more active on that. And our social media rally, which was a huge success yesterday. That was amazing how many people showed up and from different walks of life that we were posting with. That's going to help us get the word out more. And so we hope
Kudos
that's
to
gonna
you,
help.
Michelle, because you helped me so much with that 1-minute video of the transformation of Marianne Karsh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my
That's-
pleasure.
I don't know how to do that stuff.
Oh,
Bye to Ophelia. Nice to see you. Hope to see you again. And if you need help with the website, with signing up for membership, just talk to Michelle. She knows all about it.
we've gone back and forth several times. It's been lovely.
Yeah. Thank you again, Michelle. Really. It's
Thanks,
absolutely-
everybody. I gotta run.
Bye, Linda.
Linda.
Good night.
Bye, Linda.
Everybody.
So we have,
Thank you so much.
I'm just going to stop the recording there. I think we're good.